Welcome to The Dialogue with me, Guy Schoen. I'm here at the Australian Embassy in Qatar to meet a naval officer turned politician who's serving his second term at the head of the government of Western Australia.
I'm Mark McGowan, Premier of Western Australia, the largest state in Australia, the size of Europe.
Mark McGowan was born in rural New South Wales. His dad was a wool worker, his mum was a school teacher, and they stressed the importance of discipline and compassion.
If you want to get to a leadership position, be prepared to do things that are tough and difficult and that you don't want to do.
A hands-on reformer at heart, Premier McGowan is in charge of a $362 billion economy. He's aiming to bring his state closer to the Middle East and Europe to create a more prosperous future.
My role, while I'm the Premier of the state, is to promote the state, make sure I leave it a stronger and better place than I found it.
Mark is here on a mission, so let's go meet the man behind the statesman. Mr McGowan, thanks so much for joining us on The Dialogue. You're the Premier of Western Australia, a job that obviously comes with a huge amount of responsibility. But for those people perhaps less familiar with public service, politics in general, can you tell us what the job actually involves?
So I'm the Premier of the biggest state in Australia, which is the size of Europe. Western Australia is about 2.6 million square kilometres, and the Premiers basically run the systems of government, which are education, health, law and order, environmental protection, economic development, all those sorts of things. The Commonwealth Government has different responsibilities, so we have 6 states, 1 Commonwealth Government and 2 territories. But my state is the most outward-looking state in Australia, very much engaged in international trade, international tourism, international students, all those sorts of things.
And you spoke there about the international outlook, and we're here in the Middle East. This region, like Europe, is clearly important to you. What's your mission as you're travelling around regions like this? What do you hope to achieve?
So we had a very different COVID experience to most places around the world. We had very few cases, we had very little lockdown, we had virtually no one pass away with COVID for at least the first 2 years. So our experience was very different, but we did close borders to the world. So we didn't allow tourists to come in order to ensure we didn't get spread of COVID. So what we're doing now is reconnecting with the world. So I'm promoting tourism, international students, investment, the opportunities for trade, all those sorts of things with a range of organisations here in Qatar and in other countries around the world, because we spent basically at least 2 years closed off. So that's the reopening package that we put in place.
And can we find out a bit about the man behind the role? I mean, you grew up in New South Wales, and I think everybody's childhood affects their later life in some way. Have you got a sense in which how your upbringing helped shape the man you are today?
Yes, I did grow up in the eastern states of Australia, so I grew up in New South Wales and I went to university in Queensland, and then I moved to Western Australia when I was relatively young because I joined the Navy and I was a naval officer and they posted me to Western Australia, so that's where I've stayed. Like everyone, your younger life does influence you. I suppose my father in particular had a big influence on me, and it was about taking responsibility, having a strong work ethic, always doing your best no matter what the circumstances you face are, which is kind of quite important in political life, because otherwise you probably shouldn't be in political life unless you have that attitude.
And your military life, your military career, do you think that also played a role in shaping you? Are you someone that was naturally disciplined and therefore went into the military, or did the military help cultivate that discipline in you?
I think it gave me a bit more discipline than I had before I arrived, and I certainly had some strong role models there. Some of the senior officers, you'd watch them and how they acted and how they operated and how they worked. That gave you a bit of basis of someone to follow.
I always worry that I would never be thick-skinned enough to be a politician. Is that a requirement? Do you have to be someone that can roll with the punches? Do you ever get affected by the criticism and critique that naturally comes with a job like yours?
Not as much as I used to. The longer you're there, the more you get used to it, so you don't worry about it too much. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to sleep and you wouldn't be able to function, so I don't worry about it too much anymore.
You're someone in a very overt leadership position. Clearly, there are young people watching that would look to you for advice and inspiration. And what would your advice be?
If you want to get to a leadership position, be prepared to do things that are tough and difficult and that you don't want to do. And if you're not prepared to do things you don't want to do, well, then don't seek those roles.
Our hard border has been vital to keeping COVID-19 out of Western Australia.
Over the COVID period, we had to do lots of difficult things that made people unhappy, and you've got to actually be prepared to endure that. And so, and you also got to be able to build a team and take people with you and make decisions. At the end of the day, your decision might be right or wrong, but unless you're prepared to make one, you're really not cut out to be a leader.
There's lots of terms in politics, aren't there, leaders use, but centrist, pragmatist, idealist. How would you, do you fit neatly into one of those terms? How would you describe yourself?
A bit of all of them. You've got to actually have belief systems, so you've got to actually believe in things. You've got to be prepared to do them if you get the capacity or the opportunity to do them. You've always got to take account of all the other factors, the public sentiment, what's practical, what's achievable, what's affordable. So you've got to have a mix of all of them. You don't want to be completely idealistic and achieve nothing, or completely practical and therefore never stand for anything. So like everything in life, there's a balance.
How do you keep yourself in good shape mentally and physically with the job that you've got? Have you got a regime that you stick to? Have you got tips that you'd share with us about how to do that, keeping fit and sane during this time?
I don't know. Just go walking if you can, and if you can, go to the gym and do some exercise if that opportunity presents itself. Make sure you talk to people about the problems that you face, so you're always engaging with people you trust about it and seeking their views. Commit to spend time with your family if you have the opportunity. All those things are pretty standard, but that's what I do.
And finally, we're in the country of Qatar in the Middle East, and you're here now, reaching out, building partnerships and relationships. What's your impression of what you've found so far?
It's an amazing place. We've met with a bunch of tourism operators and international student providers and engineers and the like, because we want to continue that engagement with Qatar. And we've just done a tour of one of the new stadiums, Al Janoub Stadium, which is remarkable. And so the World Cup will be the biggest event in the world this year, a sporting event at least, across the globe. And so having a look at the stadium and how it's going to operate and all that is incredible. I suspect this will be a remarkable sporting event that will be talked about forever, and Qatar will really be put on the map.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us on The Dialogue.
Thank you.